Motoring 2012 on TSN is brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.
As we've said before, all the hype and talk in the automotive world these days is about electric and hybrid vehicles. Well, I'm not buying into it, and if you look at the figures, neither are you, the consumer. I mean, with electric, you've got range anxiety. With hybrid, among other things, who are you going to call when you need service? Well, if something's going to go wrong with that hybrid system, it better happen in a large city like here in Los Angeles. Because here in LA, we've actually found our very first hybrid service center, and the dealer says it could be the only one in a city that loves the automobile. So, what are you going to do? You want good fuel economy, you want clean emissions. Well, I suggest you stick with a technology that's been around for over 100 years, as in the internal combustion engine. Gasoline. Well, this week in LA, we're checking out the new 2012 Mazda 3 that comes with a technology that Mazda says will give you all the benefits of those other guys without the pain of compromise. And this technology is called SKYACTIV.
Mazda 3 represents a third of the global sales for Mazda. The SKYACTIV technologies that we're launching on this new Mazda 3 is going to keep us even more competitive in a very competitive C-car segment within Canada and within the U.S.
The big thing is that they're taking the 100-year-old combustible engine and making it better.
Everybody's been telling that the good old gas engine is very inefficient. Well, Mazda is trying to prove that we can be more efficient with the technology we have.
SKYACTIV technology will roll out in every single one of our products, so that way the customer from a CX-9 all the way down to the Mazda 3, Mazda 2 will benefit from this new technology.
SKYACTIV really, if you back far enough up, it's a philosophy. It's an engineering philosophy for how we go about solving problems. But when you actually get into the hard parts, our SKYACTIV engines are more efficient internal combustion engine. Our SKYACTIV transmissions are more efficient transmission. All of them are getting their efficiency without sacrificing fun to drive. For the consumer, it means they get to put the cheap gas in the car, they burn less of it, and it still drives like a normal car. In fact, it drives like a really fun car, because that's really what we're trying to keep our focus on, is having it fun to drive without having to sacrifice fuel economy. We've got the fuel economy that'll meet or beat any comparable size or price car, but it's more fun to drive.
There's room to be done on improving the combustible engine, and I think that very few people are taking up electric cars. The hybrid experiment seems almost to be over. I think this is something that Mazda is really onto here, and my question is, how much further can they go with this kind of technology?
You know, for Mazda, the best-selling car for them globally is the 3. They've produced over 3 million since it was first introduced in 2004, and in Canada, half the cars this company sells are 3, so it's been a huge success. But the competition is getting tougher. Did I hear South Korea? In fact, we've got 5 more brands in this particular segment. However, Mazda has decided only on a refresh. Maybe it's a case of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, well, from the standpoint of the exterior styling, it's a little bit of an evolution versus a revolution. I mean, Mazda 3, as you know, is extremely successful in Canada, third largest selling volume vehicle in the country. So we got to be very careful when we do an evolution of a product such as this. So we did that.
We've refreshed the vehicle by adding a new front fascia that not only enhances the look, but also enhances the aerodynamics. Interior changes include new instrument clusters, gauges that are tiered based on trim models, so you'll get a gray meter illumination for standard, blue illumination for SKYACTIV models, and red for Mazda Speed 3. We've reduced our prices from 11 model years significantly, from anywhere between 3 and 5% across the board, representing savings of $600 to $900. Very little changes in terms of the GX and GT trimming. There's been some equipment adds and repricing, but the big news story is the GS with the SKYACTIV.
The Zoom company, they've taken the kind of spirit of the Miata, the short gear throws, and transferred it into a compact car. And I think the driving experience is fantastic. I think the handling is great. I think for a car that's under $20,000, you're going to get a lot of fun out of it, and you get a lot of economy out of it. You got nice style. I just think it's a real winner.
We're having consumption that are close to a hybrid, close to diesel, and we're still using the same old combustion engine.
This is a very important stepping stone. While so many of the cars on the road are using internal combustion engines, let's use this stuff as intelligently as we can, get the most benefit. mastering the technology that's available is definitely the smart thing to do right now.
Probably the result of a road rage incident, but don't go to this body shop. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
It's been North America's favourite family car for well over a decade. On this edition of Test Drive, the Toyota Camry. The reason the Toyota Camry has been North America's favourite family sedan is simple. It does everything expected of it well. No, it doesn't stand out in any particular area, but when the family has to get from A to B, it does it in style. It holds 5 realistically and has a cavernous trunk. Sure, the style is about as exciting as dry toast, but at least the latest Camry has a hint of flash to its overall visage, and this in spite of the evolutionary nature of the rework. You know, Toyota did take a rather conservative approach to the exterior styling. They didn't spare a dime when it came to the interior. The materials are much nicer, the layout is much nicer, and if you go with the XLE, you get a ton of equipment. There are, however, a couple of pet peeves. Number one, these audio controls, they look like they were very much an afterthought. The second thing has to do with the navigation system. You look on the center stack, nowhere does it say this car has a navigation system. You have to push the app button, then push the map button, then push the confirm button, because after all, they don't want you driving through a river instead of taking the bridge. The point is, they've turned a one-touch operation into a chore. Where Toyota do need to be taken to task is under the hood. With the exception of an extra gear in the manumatic transmission, the motivation carries over from the previous generation Camry. The test car arrived with the base 2.5-litre 4. It puts out 178 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque. Not outstanding numbers by any stretch, but enough to negotiate the cut and thrust of a morning commute and pass a slower car when the need arises. Loading the car up with passengers does blunt the edge a little, but not enough to worry. It does, however, make the up-level 268 horsepower V6 an important choice for anyone wanting more than acceptable. The automatic transmission on this Camry has a manual mode, which is a bit of an oxymoron in the first place. However, it has a very annoying trait. Whenever you shift from drive to manual, the gearbox automatically downshifts from 6th gear to 4th gear, and it does so without regard for speed, which forces the driver to put it back into the correct gear. My question is, why on earth is there an automatic mode on the manual side of the gearbox? It makes no sense whatsoever. When it comes to ride quality, the Camry is the Japanese Buick. It takes a pretty gnarly bit of road to get the suspension to feed the jostle back to the passengers. In this regard, the ride is first rate. The flip side sees an overall setup being a little too soft to provide any real semblance of handling. Certainly the amount of roll is limited to a handful of degrees, and the feedback afforded by the steering is all it should be in spite of the electric assist. In the rear seat of this Camry, it will accommodate 3 adults realistically. There's plenty of legroom, plenty of headroom, and because there's no tunnel intrusion, the poor soul that draws the short straw, well, he's got somewhere to put his feet. The other thing I do like, when you fold the seat back down, it's finished in a hard plastic. That means that under an emergency stop, what's in the trunk stays in the trunk. Needless to say, the Camry bobbed as much as it weaved on its way through the pylons. In fairness, a big part of the mushy feel was down to the snow tyres on the test car. They allowed the Camry to slip into understeer long before it otherwise would. The final part of the handling equation is a sophisticated stability control system. It manages to keep the Camry pointed in the right direction and in tune with the driver's wishes. You know, a lot of people will decry the fact that Toyota didn't push the Camry's stylistic or powertrain envelopes far enough, especially in light of the Hyundai Sonata and Kia Optima. But you know what? It really doesn't matter, because this car is not about to lose its favourite status anytime soon.
We are very lucky that week in, week out, we get to test drive new cars and document interesting events within our automotive industry. And every once in a while, we get to experience something that's very cool, and that's exactly what we're doing today.
We have Shane Cardwell, my husband, who's here today. We have DWAYNE McLean, and we also have Wayne Downer. They don't just do stunt driving. These are the guys that set themselves on fire. They do high falls, they do fights. They're very, very well-rounded stuntmen. But they do specialize in stunt driving, and they are some of the best in the country without a doubt.
We're here with the A-list stunt drivers, and with over 270 years combined experience, they're passing their knowledge and skills over to a lucky group of drivers. And when their own skills are tested, it'll undoubtedly make for some interesting TV.
We have Rogers Communications out here today. They ran a contest between their employees, and those with the most sales got to come to stunt driving school. Surprisingly enough, even though this was started to train stunt performers, we get more interest from the general public who want to go for a ride with the guy that drove with the bus on Speed, or get in the car with Al Wyatt, who jumped the General Lee for 7 years, you know, or get in with Super Dave's stunt double. You know, it's a whole experience.
Very competitive. I'm sure you can hear the heckling on the sidelines, and hopefully none of it's on tape, so please edit it out if it is. But yeah, it's very competitive, and I think you can see it right now by the way the guys are picking up their game on day 2.
We start them off with the absolute basics of stunt driving, and then this afternoon we'll progress even further. They'll take all of those elements that they're learning one by one, and they'll put them all together in a sequence.
It's definitely something I would highly recommend everyone does, and you'll learn some very unique and exciting driving skills, as you can see.
Now, that's my girl, yeah. The hardest part of the whole thing is to get them to go home. All right? Come last day, they really want to stay here and drive some more. And that makes us feel good. So, what can I say?
Why is car insurance like hemorrhoids? Because nobody wants to talk about it, but I do. So see what I got to say at motoringtv.com.
I think that when a customer actually steps in and touches and feels the vehicle and takes it for a drive, they'll notice that we didn't take anything out and we actually put more in.
You know, I've never been a fan of the continual variable transmission, better known as a CVT. In fact, one of the MAZDA engineers has a great description for a CVT. He said it's like a bungee cord that connects the accelerator to the engine. There are some good ones out there, but they're hard to find, and they're usually in a much bigger vehicle. Well, if you're thinking of buying the 2012 Mazda 3, I've got some good news for you.
No, we don't have a CVT. Our SKYACTIV drive automatic transmission is really, we're trying to get the best of both worlds. We want the most efficient transmission possible, but we want it to feel direct and connected. So when you step on the gas, the car goes. There's no slipping. The engine's not revving up. That's the thing that really has bothered us when we've tested CVTs, is there's no connection between what the driver does and what the car does. It just seems like the engine takes off and then the car has to catch up to it.
Mazda high revving engine before, you would go like 120 kilometers per hour and you were at 4,000. Now today around 120, even 125, we were at 2,400. So that helps a lot for fuel economy.
And I have to agree with Benoit, this transmission is seamless. All right, now let's join Bill Gardner with his tip of the week.
Our motoring tip of the week concerns tire pressure. You really should be doing regular tire pressure checks on your vehicle. In the cold winter months, it's extra important because every time the temperature drops, you lose a bit of inflation pressure. And the scale goes like this. For every 5 degrees Celsius that it drops, you lose 1 PSI. So if you checked it a few weeks ago when we had 15 degrees Celsius weather and it's 0 today, you've lost 3 PSI right there. Now you're going to lose approximately 1 PSI per month per tire. That's considered normal migration of air through the carcass of the tire. Then you could still have things like rim leaks or valve leaks. You add those 3 things together and you could have a tire that's significantly underinflated. So make sure you're doing those tire pressure checks, and don't forget the spare. Check it with the tire cold, check the tire placard on your car, and set it to specs. That's your motoring tip of the week.
It was 21 years ago and 1991 belonged to the NSX. Although production ended in 2005, Acura had a little surprise for the world media at the Detroit Auto Show.
This NSX Concept is powered by a mid-engine V6 and a new Acura exclusive sport hybrid super handling all-wheel drive system.
I think now is the right time for this car. Mr. Ito talks about our corporation in general is all about performance through efficiency. And the old NSX was that way, the car that he built. The previous meaning the original. Well, the original is what it is the size, everything is just so immaculate. When we started working on this vehicle, we looked at the older car and we were awed again when we look at it in detail of what Mr. Ito and his team did. But other than the fact that it's a mid-engine V6, it's pretty much on our own. I think the only thing that we brought in styling-wise is a Q. We worked on a little bit with a tail light. We felt that it was an icon of the old car. It had a ring-type red tail light, and so we tried to bring some band ring tail image on the new car. But other than that, no, it's all brand new NSX. This is what we want to do. This is what our corporation is about. And if everybody felt that same energy when Ito-san walked away and everything came together, we're just very pleased about the whole situation, yes.
This Orlando really is an either-or proposition. With all of the seats up, you can carry 7 people. However, there's virtually no luggage space left. However, if cargo's the order of the day, very simple. Simply drop all of the seats down flat. You end up with a nice flat floor, 1,594 litres of cargo space that's all nicely squared off. So what you see is what you get.
During his review of the 2012 Chevy Orlando, Graham made a point of showing the utility side of this vehicle, simply because that's what the Orlando is all about. After leaving the minivan market years ago, GM has returned with his MPV. It's smaller than a minivan, but still able to seat 7. The interesting thing about the Orlando is that despite its name, it is not being sold south of the border. Now, the Orlando is based on GM's Delta platform, which is a big plus since it's the same platform used by the Chevy Cruze, a vehicle that has proved a huge success story for General Motors. The Orlando has a 4-cylinder, 2.4-liter direct-injection Ecotec engine with 174 horses. It's the same power plant found in the Equinox. Now, GM claims it will get the best fuel economy of any non-hybrid 7-seater on the market. Now, the Orlando won its segment in our recent Car of the Year award program and now has a space in our long-term garage. So hopefully we'll find out if, along with the utility, can the Orlando offer some fun and enjoyable driving on a daily basis.
Closed captioning of Motoring 2012 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
On our way to the shoot today, we saw a classic case of road rage. 2 cars going at each other, honking and shaking fists and tailgating and weaving in and out. They had some beef going on. We have no idea, obviously, what it was. But I thought, these people are idiots. Don't they realize the danger they're creating for everybody else? They've got some little battle going on. Come on, grow up. Now, people wouldn't do this in a supermarket lineup or waiting for a movie. Why do they do it in their cars? Well, actually, studies have shown it's the anonymity of your car that really does it for you. I mean, you can't barely see anybody's face with these tinted windows, which should be banned, but that's another story. And you can just get away with almost murder in the car. So I'm thinking, maybe we should require everybody to have a huge sign on the roof of the car with a photograph and maybe your name and your phone number and address, maybe where your kids go to school. Now all of a sudden you're not anonymous, you're an identifiable person. Maybe people would start acting like civilized human beings. Yeah, we should do this. Come on, Jim Kenzie for Minister of Transportation, vote for me. And until that happens, grow up. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Okay, so the 2012 Mazda 3 is a refresh, or as Mazda likes to describe it, it's been restyled, re-equipped, and repriced. Well, when it comes to styling, I never really liked that happy face, and now it comes with what appears to be a fat lip. But Mazda, half the cars they sell in Canada are Mazda 3s. It's always been a good car, and it still is. But the big story is the SKYACTIV technology, soon to be on all models. Right now in the States, it's included on the GT, but only on the GS in Canada. And soon to come will be clean diesel. So let's see, increased performance and fuel economy that rivals any hybrid out there. And speaking of hybrids, which of course come with a gasoline engine, imagine putting one of these engines into it, or better yet, how about a hybrid diesel? Now we're talking. But I gotta hand it to Mazda. They said no to joining any hybrid Congo line, and they have looked at the future and come up with their own vision. And what they're saying is, let's take the internal combustion engine and let's just see how clean and how fuel efficient we can get it. And you know, the internal combustion engine's been around for over 100 years, and after driving this car, I don't think it's about to go away. And that might not be a bad thing. Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com and also join us on Facebook for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Now they're shooting for some pretty big numbers. They're talking 30,000 as the goal for the CR-V. And when we compare it to what else is out there, I think that's a little optimistic considering how thick competition is in this particular segment.
Motoring 2012 on TSN has been brought to you by Michelin, a better way forward.